So, I will start out in English and say hello to everybody, and hello to this Wednesday evening. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the victim stories and how to remove them from our daily lives. And really, I think that is one of the most important points of changing from the outside in to the inside out. That is really that to lose the victim story is really to setting yourself free and to be able to navigate in your own life on your own premises with your own rules instead of being cast around by circumstance. And I think that I was lucky because I was looking a little bit on the Facebook page of the Three Principles Danish group, who had a meeting yesterday conducted by Natasha Sverloff, and she was doing a beautiful job. And I think it's correct to say that this meeting sort of spun off some comments from Trine that I thought was very relevant for tonight, and what it was about was how do you get out? How do you not get victimized from something that is as violent as rape? And how do you not get victimized from all your fears, etc., for what could be a repetition of what could happen, and how do you not get victimized from your lack of trust and confidence in males afterwards? And I thought that was a pretty good angle to start out with, and I think that I would like to initially to say this: the three principles doesn't remove the victimization of an act, but it does remove the possibility of being victimized by the experience. And I think that's very important it's a very important point to keep in mind that obviously if somebody is going to club you down in the street, that's what is going to happen. But how you experience it afterwards, how you recollect the things, how you respond to the thoughts you have about it, lies within your own sort of control, and consequently, it is not an automatic response to be victimized also by experience, and certainly not. It is not an automatic response to be victimized by the consequent memories of this experience. And I think this is a very important point to make, because otherwise victimization would be a life sentence, and it is not. So I think that from this point of view, if you would take over a little bit and talk about the insights you had, Trine, and you can do it in Danish. If you would talk a little bit about that, because I thought that it was a very valid point you came, and if I'm correct, it looked as if you all of a sudden had an insight that really was quite beautiful. So would you care to say something about that? And please use Danish if you wish.
Ja, det bliver jeg nødt til. Men det var ret sjovt, fordi da jeg sad og skrev, jeg havde gået og tænkt på det hele formiddagen, fordi i min verden er der kæmpestor forskel på, om det Natasha sad og snakkede om i går, om det er en mand, der ikke har oplevet, at flyet er styrtet ned, eller om det er en, der rent faktisk har oplevet at blive overfaldet, eller voldtaget, eller haft indbrud, eller et eller andet. Der er ret stor forskel, synes jeg. Ja. Men da jeg sad og skrev det, så kunne jeg godt se, at det var mig, der... Altså, fordi jeg kan, ligesom med den edderkop i går, der kunne jeg godt se, men det er bare en edderkop. Og da jeg så sad og skrev det, så kunne jeg godt se, jeg kunne jo ikke bare kun skrive, det var mig, der tillagde det, at det var en voldtægtsmand, og ikke bare en mand. Så det var mine tanker, der gjorde det, og det var sådan, okay, skal jeg så slette det hele, fordi nu har jeg set det, men jeg synes egentlig, det var fint nok at lade det stå, fordi det er også fint nok nogle af de svar, der så er kommet senere, ikke?
Ja. Jeg har ikke fået læst svarene. Hvad blev der sagt?
Nej, men det kan jeg sgu ikke lige lige nu, men det er sådan meget det der med, at Louise, hun sagde det der med, at det kan godt være, at man kan blive overfaldet eller sådan noget, men det er kun din krop, altså det er kun dit hylster på en eller anden måde, der ligesom kan tage skade. Ja. Det er jo ikke dit mentale sundhed kan faktisk ikke tage skade, det er kun dine tanker, der kan føre skam og skyld videre, ikke?
Ja.
Og det er jo faktisk rigtigt, uanset om det er noget, der er sket virkeligt, eller om det er noget, der er fiktivt.
Ja.
Så er det jo lige skadeligt, kan man sige, ikke?
Det kan man sige, og man kan sige, at i bund og grund, efter det er sket, når det er blevet til en erindring, så kan man sige, jamen, om det så er sket, eller man forestiller sig, at det er sket, er der jo ikke så stor forskel på, simpelthen fordi det er begge to tankekonstruktioner.
Ja. Men jeg føler tit, at folk bliver enormt, og det gjorde jeg også selv lidt i starten, fordi jeg synes jo selv, at jeg har levet et ret voldsomt liv, når man kigger på ret mange andre mennesker. Så jeg har virkelig været offeret i min egen verden, ikke? Jeg har virkelig været offer for mine forældre, og for alt deres lort, og alt det, jeg selv har oplevet senere hen i mit liv. Så jeg kan også meget nemt blive provokeret af de her 3 principper. Men altså, i starten der blev det sådan lidt, hey, men jeg kunne godt se, at det var rigtigt. Så jeg bliver det ikke mere, men når jeg møder nye mennesker, så bliver de enormt provokeret, og jeg har lidt svært ved at kunne argumentere, eller hvad skal man sige, jeg har lidt svært ved at kunne forklare dem det, fordi de bliver enormt irriteret over, at det kan være deres tanker, fordi det er jo sket virkelig, de er jo blevet overfaldet, de er jo blevet voldtaget, de har haft en lortebarndom, de har haft alt muligt. De har haft stofmisbrug eller et eller andet, det er jo virkeligt.
Ja. Men jeg synes, en af de ting, som jeg synes, da de her 3 principper blev præsenteret for mig, det var det som om, at før jeg så dem, så kunne en voldtægtshandling kunne blive til uendelig mange på grund af erindringen. Ja, fordi hver gang erindringen kom tilbage igen, så kom handlingen tilbage igen, og så blev den oplevet næsten fysisk.
Ja.
Og der synes jeg, at de 3 principper kommer ind og siger, jamen, det er ikke nødvendigt.
Ja.
For det er ikke nødvendigt, netop fordi, at din erindring ikke nødvendigvis behøver at blive tillagt værdi længere. Du kan vælge at engagere dig i den, eller du kan vælge at lade være. Ja. Og det synes jeg giver dig den der frihed i virkeligheden til at slippe det historiske i dramaet og komme videre i teksten. Fordi ellers er du ligesom forbundet til den historie hele resten af dit liv, indtil man har fået gennembearbejdet og gennemlevet tilstrækkeligt mange gange i andet psykologisk regi. Ikke? Men der synes jeg, at de 3 principper har den meget store fordel, at når du bliver opmærksom på, hvad det er for noget, der genskaber situationen, så bliver du også opmærksom på, at det ikke er nødvendigt at genopleve den. Ja. Fordi så er det en erindring, og så er det det. Og jo mindre du beskæftiger dig med den og tillægger den værdi og begynder at knalde følelser på den, så er det stadigvæk kun en erindring. Ja.
Men jeg har et eksempel i dag, hvor jeg blev overfaldet af en hund. Jeg kom gående med min egen lille hund, og så bliver jeg overfaldet af en hund, der farer ud af en låge, der ikke er lukket, og den smadrer ind i mit venstre knæ, så kan fandme næsten ikke gå. Og jeg ved godt, at de 3 principper er der, men jeg blev så bange, og jeg er stadigvæk, altså jeg bliver jo mindet om hver eneste gang, jeg tager et skridt, at det skete for 5 timer siden. Så det er altså ikke bare lige at sige, jamen, det bliver gentaget i erindringen, men jeg kan jo mærke det. Ja. Og det synes jeg, det går godt. Altså, det bliver jo ikke ved. Men det gør fandme ondt.
Ja. Men det er jo ligesom om forskrækkelsen aftager jo efterhånden, som den er blevet repeteret så mange gange. Ikke? Så har du nogen kommentarer til det her, Thomas?
Nej.
Okay. So we were talking about the victimization of for example, rape, Harry, and would you like to add some comments to that and to the victimization in all the general terms?
Sure. When I was thinking about this topic, of course, I was thinking of my own life. You can't hear me?
Could you move a little bit closer, please?
Hello?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So I was thinking of my own personal life, and there was a moment in my life. My life was sort of in two stages. The first stage is, of course, I felt the victim before I moved to Salt Spring Island, because I was living from an outside-in reality. And then I had this huge spiritual insight, and my life changed on Salt Spring Island, and everything seemed potentially incredible, except we had no money. But so we all said, well, when we get money, we'll have everything, because we obviously have the richness of the inside. But it turned out that wasn't true, because what happened was we were relying on Sid's energy to carry us through the situations. And because his energy was so amazingly high, we were getting the boosts we needed via just being in contact with him. So when I went on my own life, now we flash forward 25 years later, and I'm totally penniless. I'm divorced. I have no friends. I haven't a car. I haven't a job, and I don't like society because they're too stupid. And I'm sitting there, and I'm living with my son, who's the one positive thing in my life, and he's living with me, and I'm totally bored, and my mind is only thinking like I'm a victim, 100% of the time, because all I can think about is those things I just mentioned. And then all of a sudden, I got an insight. And the insight was, this is always the answer to the victim story. You cannot find the answer to your victim story by analyzing it or thinking about it. It's really, you have to, like when before on the island was a level, and then Sid would come and he'd boost us up. Now I had to learn how to do that inside myself. I had to see if I learned what he was teaching, and it turned out I hadn't. So I learned some, of course. And so I had this insight. I said, why don't I just enjoy whatever comes? There's no energy in my life anyway. Why don't I just appreciate whatever comes in? And the rest of the time, I'm just going to relax and take it easy. So I changed my attitude to the whole thing, this insight. And my son would bring a few guys over. My place was very popular with the guys. And I'd bring him chips and pop, and we'd shoot some pool. I have a little pool table, and we would have a great time. And the rest of the time, I just took it easy. And this feeling of gratitude came into my life. All of a sudden, there was a change. And as this gratitude started to pour in, what I saw was that I didn't mind doing anything. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was just enjoying what life was bringing, which was almost seemed like nothing, but to me was everything. And what happened was, I remember I had to pay a bill. So I could work digging sand for 250 kroner a day and pay this bill. I'm out there digging the sand, and all of a sudden it hits me. Harry, you're a fool. You shouldn't be doing this. This is not for you. You should be doing something bigger. And 2 days later, I get a phone call. I'm the executive director of the Aboriginal Foster Kids Society, making big money with all the perks and stuff. I didn't go from here to here. I went from here, top job in the country, like 2 days. I went from bum to this. That's the spiritual energy that's in us. We don't have to be moving like the white man perspective. This is different. These three principles are tap into whatever you are. I wasn't a victim anymore. And it didn't, and guess what? I didn't do it. It happened. Kind of like, as Dickens would say, fell into it. So we want to, when we're victims, we want to understand, of course, that we're living on a level of consciousness that we're stuck on. We're stuck in time. And as soon as we have an insight, it's gone away. Now, of course, with the three principles, we understand that thought is creating this victimization, but doesn't help. Doesn't help, because you're still seeing it from your little mind. That's no good. No good. It's useful, nice to know, but it's not, it can't come from here. It's got to come from, from inside yourself. So does that resonate with you, Thomas?
Totally.
Could you express a little bit in what way?
When something shifts within, when you start to appreciate what you have and see that life is living you, and you start to be aware, and good things appear. And the more good things, and of course some bad things, but that's part of life. But anyway, you pay more attention to the good things, so you don't miss an opportunity, and you become more present and in sync with nature, and it has a good feeling to it, and without just forgetting that everything you heard all your life, you have to do something, you have to become something, you have to, achieve something. It's enough to be and to become a happy human being and appreciate your being part of the human being is opening up oceans of depth that's endless.
That's beautiful. That's it. Once you step into that, you start to see how it works. It's all consciousness. Everything is consciousness.
And human and being sort of at one point start to work together, and your old beliefs are not not so it's more boundless. It's like you're going back and forth, in and out of it, and you see that you are, as I see it, I don't know, that's just a feeling I have. So I'm one with my soul, and that's me, and everything else that's happening is life is creating itself all the time. So if you want to make something happen, I think it's important not just to listen and try to learn. Experience life. Experience it. And be awake and aware and pay attention to what is. And you see beautiful, amazing things around you all the time.
It's really that simple. You know, it's a funny thing to say. We have to see who we are and live who we are and be who we are and stop pretending that we're not. Yet, of course, that's a facetious statement because it's not quite, we step in and out of it, as you say. But it's just simply a question of the victimization story was a level of consciousness that you were existing to show you the contrast and the direction you have to go. I don't know what your story was, Trina, because it was in Danish, but it led you, whatever your story was, it led you to what you needed to know. And that's the beauty. That's why there is no victim, because at a certain level you go, thank goodness I had that problem or that way of looking at things. Because if I didn't, it wouldn't have brought me to where I am now. Because of course you have ego. Victim story is just another word for ego. You have ego. I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying everybody in the universe has ego. And you looked at your ego or your bullshit and you found something beyond it. That's all Sid was pointing, is stop looking at the rock when there's the whole world out there. And that's our journey. And Thomas said something very important, Trina. He talked about the oneness. Sid always talked about the oneness. It was always his message. That's where the answer is. We're not trying to be happy in our individual reality of life. We're trying to connect. You and I are trying to connect in a universal collective consciousness. That's all. I mean, what else is there? You know, when we share that universal consciousness together, what happens is we're home. We're home. And home feels just like home. Feels like, oh, I might as well enjoy it because I'm not making it happen. It already is. It's crazy. It already is. And yet we're pretending as a victim that it isn't. That's all addiction is. I work with people. They have these images of the victim story. And a guy talked in the last recovery center session. And this guy talked and he knew a lot. He really was a very wise. And he talked about this feeling and the feeling in the room. And I turned to another guy and says, that's all we're saying is what he just said. That's all we're teaching. We're not teaching anything else. And he said, oh, that's interesting. That's what you understand already, Trina. I can see that you're really starting to understand that. And that's
yeah.
That's the whole purpose of this room. It's for us to experience what Christian and Purnell call the sacred feeling. You know, and we not only want to experience the sacred feeling, but understand that you participate in that. As Thomas said, you participate in that. And the more you participate in it, the more you are it. and it brings you alive in it. The only reason I'm doing this room is because it's helping me to experience that. You guys are helping me to experience that. And when Christian and I got together, that was the breakthrough he experienced. Oh, I already know this. You know, he already knew he knew it, but he had to see it again. And he said, when the moment he saw it again, he said, well, I really know this. This is actually no big deal. And that's what Sid is saying. It isn't a big deal.
And what comes to mind for me is like, what's true for me is not true for you. Truth is your truth. Trinamaya is your truth.
Yeah.
And I do my best to point to it. I've seen so little, I suppose, because I've been in it for a year. But I keep on looking, and the more I look, even if it seems like nonsense sometimes, I know if I stay in the game and I just fall back into it, it's going to take care of me. And it's like coming home, not knowing where you are, and still it feels so great, and you know it's taken care of somehow.
Yeah.
And we have our different flavors to how it's expressed, but it's only words. So
So the victim story is an illusion that we believe in. Just like addiction is a victim story, an illusion that you believe in. We're addicted to our own thoughts, which hold us prisoner, or we get stuck in time, and we live and live and live in that reality. And the problem is, and society is supporting that. The doctors are supporting that. The psychology of today is supporting that. And so the victimization makes sense. You turn on TV, I listen to these guys on TV and I go, boy, they are really lost. I mean, and yet they're so popular. And 80% of the people listening to them are women. They seem to just love that stuff. And, you know, I don't mean to be a sexist on that, but, you know, the beauty is we are free of
Jeg kan ikke høre en lyd.
And that's, you know, why I feel so lucky to know Sid. And I don't mean Sid, the human being, the same Sid you know, is because he got born, had an experience that modernized truth. And the modernization of the truth was mind, thought, and consciousness. But in my mind, his big contribution has been thought. He seems to have been clearer and deeper in understanding the relationship between the spiritual nature of thought and the psychological nature of thought. And I have loved that aspect of it. And it's been my pursuit for my whole life to try and understand that on a deeper and deeper level. And thank goodness, late in my life, I fell into a deeper level of consciousness. And that's an answer for everybody with the victim story. If Harry Durbitsky could waste 68 or 69 years of his life and still fall into it, anybody can. And Christian, who's 75, if he could, I don't know when you were on Salt Spring, but you must have been about 72 or 73.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he fell into it. So we got the two old fogies falling into it and becoming babies.
True.
Fantastic. I mean, who could ask for better?
No, Harry, you see, what I just realized was that I was in an analytical mode here at the beginning of the session, and at your points and Thomas's point were right on the money. And I think the moment you realize that really life is living you, and how you experience this is really part of your growth process. It really makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Yeah.
It's how do you describe the undescribable?
Exactly.
You did pretty good, by the way, Christian. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. So you could see we're all going in and out, and the best thing that happened to me was I fell asleep before I came on this show. So I said, "Oh, it's 10 to 11 already." You know, I could have slept right through it. Who knows? But you know, that's a perfect state of consciousness to come on the show. Sleepy. you know, with none of this stuff here becomes irrelevant. Yet we have to understand it, because if we don't understand it, it controls us. And the victim story is a perfect example.
Yeah.
It must be time.
Så,
ja. Spørgsmål, hvis jeg må spørge om noget.
Ja, absolut.
Fordi jeg synes tit, at samfundet på en eller anden måde gør dig til et offer også. Hvis du nu har, lige nu der er jeg i sådan noget praktik på sådan et bofællesskab for psykisk syge. Og de har virkelig ikke haft en særlig god barndom, nogen af dem. Og der er det sådan logisk, at alle dem, der er omkring dem, kommuner, dem, der er ansatte, dem, der er ude omkring, de synes, at det er også hårdt for dem, fordi de har levet det liv, de har. Så en ting er, at de selv føler som et offer, men alle dem, der er uden omkring dem, føler også dit offer. Forstår I, hvad jeg mener?
Ja, det forstår jeg godt. Ja, har du mere?
Nej.
Okay, so Trina, I was saying that the community tends to victimize people because they tend to if they have been through a rough childhood, etc., they get comforted from that perspective by people identifying themselves with the suffering of their patients and suffering, etc., etc. So everybody is really on a very low state of mind when dealing with childhood problems, etc., etc. The moment they start identifying with the problems and identifying with the patients, if we take Denmark, that is the way it functions simply because that's the way. If you are still living, if you will, on an outside inside sort of world, then that is going to happen. Then there is a cause, and then there is a victimization, and then we have to deal with that. And I think that really is the major point of the principles. Is really trying to eliminate that understanding, or trying to introduce another understanding that removes that element, because it will really be to the benefit of everybody.
Well,
but Trina, you're absolutely right. So as soon as you have a patient or a treatment relationship in the psychological manner that you were describing, you're going to have victims. Yeah. and you're going to have people dealing with the victims as part of their job. But you see that I think that I was looking at it also in connection with the book I've written about smoking, and it's really a result of what premises you have for the situation you're living in. In order to clarify that, I see that I love the way that I think it was taken, or Keith Bleeman said, what back in that behavior is really formed as a basic of perception, and when the earth was flat, everybody acted according to that perception. And then the earth became round, and then they started behaving in a different fashion. And as long as you have the present perception of reality, you're going to have victim stories. So I think that's one of the major benefits of the principles, is that we are lifting consciousness up to a new level, so that these stories are eliminated to the benefit of everybody involved. I mean, does it make sense?
Jo.
What, Trina? What?
Could you? Thank you.
Okay, here, I'll move this up closer.
That's nice.
Okay, Trina. Denmark, in my opinion, we're talking on a totally different level than before. It's primarily a follower in the psychological and psychiatric professions, and in its concepts of what the rest of the world is doing, and what they feel they can do is pick the best of what's being offered, and then offer it in a more humane manner, which they do. But the problem, of course, is that the level of psychology and psychiatry is so low that it fuels the victim to be a bigger victim. And as the world evolves, you'll see it shift in Denmark, because more psychiatrists and psychologists like Mette and her partner will come into the fold, and the people will see the common sense of that. But there's another aspect to it that's very hard to gauge, and that is that each individual who is under psychiatric or psychological problems has to go through their own spiritual journey. So they'll go in and come back, they'll go out and come back in. My friend Yannick, who just passed away and is the reason actually this room is in existence, was at 22, the most handsome, successful man, very intelligent, very leader of a big leader in his community and everything. Then he had a psychiatric nervous breakdown, and he went under the drugs and so on. And then we lost contact, and then he came to Canada, and he stayed with me for 2 weeks with my family and me. And the first thing he did was he talked. He said, I always started almost every sentence with, "I'm mentally ill." And I said to him, Yannick, and he was taking a lot of drugs, but he was really quite cool. I said, Yannick, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to. He says, but that's who I am. I says, no, that's not who you are. I don't want you to talk about that anymore. So he stopped, and we started having a good time. Then we went to Salt Spring and stayed at a cabin, and Sid had a work party, and he went over to talk to Sid. I guess he wanted to. And two things that was remarkable about that was, he's the laziest man in the universe. He never did anything. And yet at the work party, he kept looking at me. Where am I getting all this energy from? He just couldn't understand where he was getting all this. He was working. Where am I getting all this energy from? And the second thing was he had a moment with Sid, and he had already seen that the drugs were poison. He had seen that. And so he talked to Sid about that. And Sid listened and just gave him whatever advice and so on. Anyway, I decided I would take him to see Keith, because Keith and I had worked for a year together. And I wanted to, he's a psychologist. So, we went to La Connor, and I said to Keith, you know, I've been with this guy for 2 weeks. He's been, the whole 2 weeks, he's been in an incredible state. It seems to me like that he's doing really, really well. So Keith wrote a letter. He wrote a letter to the psychologist in Denmark, and he wrote, it would be okay for Yannick to lower his dosage, and you can monitor it and see what happens. So I'm going to make the story real short because it's a long story. So anyway, we go back. I go talk to the psychologist. The psychologist agrees that we'll lower the dosage. I've talked to Yannick and say, well, how are you doing with the lower dosage? I'm very disappointed, very disappointed. I feel exactly the same as I did on the higher dosage. No, I said, let me get this straight. You feel the same on the, he said, yeah. I said, that sounds like a benefit. He said, maybe. So he lowers it again. I said, how do you feel? Way better. And then finally he says, I don't need him. So for a year, we're back and forth. He's talking hot, beautiful stuff. He's clear. Then after a year, he says, I think I have to go back to the drugs. And that's where he went. And his life went right downhill, all the way down. He remained a true blue friend, had beautiful feelings, but he wanted to go back into that world. And that's where he went. So psychology and what we do and how we do it is unpredictable as well. So it's not quite as simple as you do this, get the 3P, booms, you know, you're no victim anymore. You know, so you can see that's complicated, right, to see. And yet, to the very last day, this man was a spiritual, enriching, sharing human being who had a perception of himself that he didn't want to give up. So that's the life we lead. You're doing the same thing as he did. You're Yannick. I'm Yannick. We're all doing that. We step into this world. We're certainly thankful, but I haven't noticed that Christian is perfect yet. You know, I haven't noticed that. Yeah.
It's because you haven't looked enough.
I haven't looked deep enough. That's right. And Pernell keeps telling me that he, you know, whatever she tells me, so I keep looking for that, you know. But anyway, you know, but so don't look for a formula of success. Find it inside yourself and know that's the truth. And when you can share it, that's how you grow. Like you come on here and you share a little, you grow. That's the way it works. Same Thomas.
I heard the words from the beginning when I fell into these 3 principles. Was it like, it doesn't matter, June, July last year, I heard the words, get stupider, make yourself stupid again. And I didn't understand it, but it's so obvious now, because before I knew everything. I had it all, like, you know, I knew everything, how everything worked, and I told everyone that they didn't know anything because I knew better. And now it's like I'm puzzled and curious because I realize I don't know nothing. I know what I made beliefs for myself to understand and the insights I had through my life. But actually, every new situation is a new situation, and it's a lot of things to discover in that situation. And it's like we don't know, and then we know. That's life, and it's so. I really don't know how people. I can see things in form, how they have been created throughout history and built upon beliefs and stuff like that. And it's like if you gain if you weigh 300 pounds and you realize I don't want to carry around this weight anymore. It's not going to happen through the night. Not going to wake up the day after and realize, okay, I'm down to 120 again. It takes time, but as soon as you realize it, nothing will stop you, and you're just going to see more and more and more beautiful stuff on the way, and learn more. And through that learning curve, as someone speaks about it, the whole life is a learning curve, and it's without beginning and end. It's endless. Everything is endless, and that's the fun of it. More to learn every day, and it's wonderful to wake up to it. So how I see it. I don't know if it made any sense, but
no, but Thomas, I think that as I discover weight loss in the physical world is that my weight seems to be standing on the same point for quite some time, and then it takes a jump downwards. And that's really also what I would say spiritual weight loss is that's not linear. It's not linear. As Harry was saying here, he was going from zero income to high bracket here. So there are no different rules as how your spiritual weight loss is going to, or weight gain was perhaps better, is going to happen, because it really can jump because it's really quantum mechanics or even beyond that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, but my comparison with weight loss was more because in the beginning I wanted to have so much, and the more I wanted it, the more it just vaporized in front of me, because it wasn't anywhere to get hold on. And then when I just let go of it, I jumped, of course. And then I jumped, and then, of course, I fall back sometimes again, but not as far. It's higher and higher levels to it. I think I see it that way, because I see things more clearly, and yeah.
But I was rather curious, because I discovered that I relapsed at the beginning of this session here. I relapsed into trying to explain what was happening when you were not in the being a victim anymore, and that's not. That is really a relapse that amounts to something, and I was so happy that I got corrected here, because it gave me another perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it showed that you weren't. It was actually good that you put yourself out, because you saw it quicker.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you wouldn't have said anything. You would have just, and you would have just probably. That's the beauty of putting yourself in the world and living in it. It is an interactive physical contact sport, and the more you expose yourself to new and interesting situations, the faster you see yourself.
Yeah.
And also you see your doubts and your concerns, and you see what they are. Wasted thought that is happening in my head, and it looks like it's going to continue. It's just going to be yappity yap. And and sometimes I buy into it and take it seriously, and other times obviously when we're on this show, for instance, and we're all get into it, what happens is the yappity yap goes quiet. That's the teaching. The higher we go into the truth, the less yappity yap we hear. And then we find out if we heard anything, because we go back into our own personal little life And we then now can hear the yappity yap, and we see if we learned something. And always with a higher level of consciousness, the way I experienced it on Salt Spring was, of course, we'd get together in a gathering and go to some camp and unbelievable experience. And I come back to Salt Spring, and the first quarter of the day was like reliving the past. And then it would go poof. And I said, so it wasn't like the past disappeared. It was there. And for the first quarter, and it was like this first quarter of the day, I was going through it and stuff. I said, oh, there's the same old bullshit. Yeah. And then poof. And that's the victim story. Yeah.
Yep. Is that the note that we are going to close this session on?
Er det en killing, du har det her, Trine? Er det en killing?
Ja, det er det. En lille bisekat.
Oh, yeah, all right. Beautiful. That's gorgeous. Yeah. Maybe who do we have coming on in September, Christian? Just for my information.